The Silent Sentinel. The execution chamber aboard the Omnipresent Council's flagship glowed with an eerie blue light. Tessa Blackwood stood perfectly still, her enhanced muscles tensed against the energy restraints that pinned her arms to her sides. Her silver-flecked eyes, evidence of the illegal genetic modifications that had condemned her, scanned the room methodically. Specimen T-37, intoned High Judge Oren, his multi-jointed fingers tapping against the translucent control panel. You have been found guilty of harboring illegal genetic enhancements in violation of Creation Statute 9.3. Your existence threatens the genetic purity standards established by the Genetic Accord of 2287. Tessa didn't bother responding. The 7 exalted council members, representatives of the most advanced species in the known galaxy, had already decided her fate the moment her unique DNA signature had been flagged by a routine medical scan in the Proxima spaceport. The sentence is dissolution, Oren continued, his iridescent skin pulsing with color patterns that betrayed his excitement. Your component atoms will be redistributed through the Council's resource networks. The observation gallery above the chamber remained mostly empty. Few cared to watch the elimination of yet another human who had dared to modify their genetic structure. Humans had always been troublesome since their acceptance into the galactic community, constantly pushing boundaries, breaking rules, modifying themselves despite explicit prohibition. In the back row of the gallery, Darius Vale slouched in his seat, his worn leather jacket bunched uncomfortably beneath him. A half-empty bag of synthetic chips rested on his knee. He yawned loudly, earning a disapproving glance from the only other spectator, a data journalist recording the proceedings for the official archives. Begin dissolution sequence, commanded Judge Oren. The floor beneath Tessa began to glow red. In 30 seconds, specialized nanites would disassemble her at the molecular level, a humane execution according to Council standards. Darius crumpled his empty chip bag and sighed heavily. With movements that appeared both lazy and precisely calculated, he stood up and stretched. "Excuse me," he called down to the council members, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Quick question before you dissolve her." 7 alien heads turned toward him in perfect synchronization, expressions ranging from shock to outrage. "Spectators are forbidden from addressing the council during proceedings," snapped Judge Oren, his skin flashing crimson. Darius ignored him, vaulting over the gallery railing and dropping 12 meters to land with impossible grace on the chamber floor. He straightened, brushing imaginary dust from his jacket. "See, I've been wondering," he continued as though he were discussing the weather, "isn't it a bit hypocritical to punish humans for genetic modification when every one of you has been engineered to the molecular level?" "Security breach," shouted one of the council members. Tessa watched the stranger with narrowed eyes. There was something off about his movements, too fluid, too precise for his apparent disinterest. "Citizen, you have violated sacred chamber protocols. Identify yourself immediately," demanded Judge Oren. "Name's Darius. Just a traveler passing through." He ambled toward Tessa, hands in his pockets. "Couldn't help noticing you're about to disintegrate someone for basically existing. The human harbors illegal genetic modifications that could destabilize established evolutionary hierarchies," explained Council Member Zenth, her tentacled appendages gesturing emphatically. Right, Darius nodded, now standing directly beside Tessa. He glanced at her restraints with apparent boredom. "So basically, you're afraid." The dissolution countdown reached 15 seconds. The floor beneath Tessa glowed brighter. "Afraid," sputtered Oren. "We are the Omnipresent Council. We have shepherded 10,000 species into evolutionary perfection. We have nothing to fear from a modified human." "Then why kill her?" Darius asked, his eyes suddenly focused and sharp. "If she's no threat." The countdown reached 10 seconds. "Enough." Oren slammed his hand on the control panel. "Security, remove this human and process him for interference with judicial proceedings." Security drones detached from the ceiling, hovering toward Darius with stun appendages extended. 8 seconds. "Last chance to stop this," Darius said, his previously lazy demeanor evaporating like morning dew. 5 seconds. "You have no authority here, human," hissed Council Member Zenth. 3 seconds. "Fine," Darius sighed. "The hard way it is." In a movement too fast for Tessa to track, Darius pressed his palm against her restraint control. The energy bands dissipated instantly. In the same fluid motion, he swept her off the dissolution platform just as it erupted with molecular disrupting energy. What? Tessa began, but Darius was already moving. The security drones converged. Darius dodged the first stun beam with minimal effort, then flicked his wrist toward the nearest drone. The machine froze midair, then dropped to the floor as if its power had been cut. "Stop them," screamed Orin. Darius grabbed Tessa's hand. "Can you run?" "Better than you," she responded automatically. Her genetic enhancements included reinforced musculature and optimized cardiovascular systems. Perfect. He smiled for the first time, a lopsided grin that transformed his face from unremarkable to strangely compelling. "Exits this way." They sprinted toward the chamber's main doors as alarms blared throughout the facility. Tessa expected Darius to slow them down, but to her surprise, he matched her enhanced pace with ease. "Who are you?" she demanded as they rounded a corner, narrowly avoiding a containment field that materialized behind them. "Someone who was trying to take a nap until your execution interrupted me," he replied, pulling her down a maintenance corridor. "Council chambers are usually quiet, good place to catch some sleep. Today, not so much. You risked your life because my execution disturbed your nap?" Tessa asked incredulously. "I dislike noise," Darius shrugged. "And hypocrisy. The council's full of both." They reached a service elevator. Darius placed his hand against the access panel, and the doors opened immediately despite requiring high-level authorization. "How did you?" "I'm talented," he said, ushering her inside. "Docking bay level, please." The elevator descended rapidly. Tessa studied her unexpected savior. Up close, she noticed details her enhanced vision revealed, microscopic scars along his knuckles, eyes that shifted color subtly in the changing light, the too-perfect rhythm of his breathing. "You're modified too," she realized aloud. "Something like that," he replied vaguely. "Why help me? You don't know me." Darius leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly looking tired. "Let's just say I recognize injustice when I see it. And you didn't deserve to die for being what you are." The elevator doors opened to reveal the docking bay, currently in chaos as security forces mobilized. Klaxons wailed and emergency lights strobed across the vast chamber. "Tell me you have a ship," Darius said. "Bay 42, Tessa replied. "If they haven't impounded it yet. They wouldn't have had time." Darius peered around the corner. 8 security officers between us and Bay 42. "Can you fight?" "Better than most," Tessa confirmed. Her modifications weren't just cosmetic, she had been designed for survival in the harshest environments. "Good. Try to keep up." Darius moved first, stepping into plain view of the security team. The officers shouted and raised their weapons. What happened next left Tessa momentarily stunned. Darius moved with impossible speed, disarming the first 3 officers before they could fire a single shot. His movements weren't just fast, they seemed to bend space itself, as though he were taking shortcuts through reality. Tessa shook off her surprise and joined the fray. Together, they incapacitated the security team without killing anyone. Darius fought with casual efficiency, expending minimal energy while achieving maximum results. Bay 42, Tessa pointed once the path was clear. Her ship, the Stardancer, waited in its berth, a sleek vessel designed for speed and stealth. Tessa placed her palm on the entry scanner, and the airlock hissed open. "Nice ship," Darius commented as they boarded. "Custom modifications." "Like its owner," Tessa replied, sliding into the pilot's seat. Her fingers flew across the controls, initiating the launch sequence. "They're sealing the bay doors." Darius dropped into the co-pilot chair, examining the controls with mild interest. "So blow through them. That would destroy half the docking bay." "They were going to dissolve you molecule by molecule 5 minutes ago," he pointed out. "I think property damage is justified." Tessa couldn't argue with that logic. She activated the Stardance's forward weapons array, another illegal modification, and targeted the massive bay doors. "Hold on," she warned as the ship lifted off. The Stardance's engines roared to life, and energy beams lanced from its forward cannons, blasting a hole through the bay doors. Tessa piloted the ship through the opening, accelerating hard as they burst into open space. "Council vessels incoming," she reported, watching the sensor displays. 3 pursuit craft, heavily armed. "Can we outrun them?" Darius asked, looking utterly unconcerned. "Probably. The Stardance is faster than standard Council ships. But they'll track us through jump signatures. Not if we mask the jump. Darius reached over, inputting a complex sequence into the navigation computer. Try these coordinates. Tessa hesitated, then nodded. The pursuit ships were closing fast. FTL jump in 3, 2, 1. The Stardancer vanished into folded space, leaving the Council vessels behind. Where are we going? Tessa asked. Darius finally relaxed into his seat, his earlier intensity fading back into apparent laziness. Somewhere safe. For now. Why did you save me? Tessa pressed. The truth this time. Darius closed his eyes, seeming to drift toward sleep despite their precarious situation. Because you're like me, he murmured. Different. And the galaxy needs different if it's ever going to change. As the Stardancer streaked through hyperspace, Tessa studied the enigmatic men who had risked everything to save a stranger. One thing was certain, her life would never be the same again. Bonds of starlight. The Stardancer emerged from hyperspace in a remote sector of the Andromeda Fringe, a region notorious for its lawlessness and distance from Council jurisdiction. Tessa guided the ship toward a small, unremarkable moon orbiting a gas giant. Welcome to Helios 9, Darius said, gesturing toward the approaching moon. Not much to look at, but the Council avoids this sector like a plague zone. Tessa eyed the barren surface skeptically. There's nothing down there. That's the point. Darius stretched in his seat. Best place to hide something is somewhere nobody bothers to look. As they descended through the thin atmosphere, a massive hangar door appeared, sliding open in the side of what had appeared to be just another rocky outcropping. Tessa guided the Stardancer inside, where dozens of other ships sat in various states of repair. What is this place? She asked as they touched down. Refuge, Darius replied simply. For people like us. The hangar was bustling with activity. Engineers worked on vessels with obvious modifications, while individuals of various species moved with purpose through the facility. What struck Tessa immediately was that many showed clear signs of genetic enhancement, features that would have marked them for dissolution by the Council. A tall woman with intricate silver patterns embedded in her dark skin approached as they disembarked. Her eyes, completely black with pinpoints of light like stars, widened at the sight of Darius. You actually left the station, she said, sounding genuinely shocked. I thought it would take a supernova to get you off that couch. Hello to you too, Celine, Darius replied with a lazy smile. And you brought company. Celine turned her star-filled eyes toward Tessa, assessing her with obvious interest. Another escapee. T-37, Tessa introduced herself with her designation number, a habit formed during years of hiding. She has a name, Darius corrected gently. Tessa Blackwood. Council was about to dissolve her when I happened to be in the neighborhood. Celine raised an eyebrow. You happened to be in a Council execution chamber. Since when do you leave this moon, let alone attend Council proceedings? Darius shrugged noncommittally. I was bored. He's lying, Tessa interjected. He knew exactly who I was and where to find me. Celine's expression shifted to one of deep concern. Darius, tell me you didn't hack the Council's dissolution schedule again. Fine, I won't tell you, he replied, already walking away. Tessa needs quarters. And probably food. And definitely a new identity chip. Celine sighed, turning to Tessa. He's always been like this. Infuriating, isn't he? I don't know what he is, Tessa admitted. But he shouldn't have been able to defeat those security drones or officers so easily. His movements, they weren't normal. No, Celine agreed, her voice dropping. They wouldn't be. Come, I'll show you around while explaining a few things about your rescuer. As they walked through the underground facility, Tessa marveled at its scope. What had appeared to be a small outpost from the outside was actually an extensive complex carved into the moon's crust. This is the largest sanctuary for modified humans and other species in this quadrant, Celine explained. We call it Haven. I've never heard of it. That's by design. The Council would obliterate this moon if they knew what was here. Celine led her into a dining area where various beings ate and conversed. Darius helped establish this place years ago, though you'd never know it from how he acts now. Who is he, really? Tessa asked. Celine considered the question carefully. That's complicated. What do you know about the Genesis Project? Tessa froze. The Genesis Project was the stuff of whispered legends, a clandestine human initiative from before the Council's formation to create the ultimate adaptable human. The project was said to have been destroyed by the first Exalted Council as an example of humanity's dangerous ambitions. It's a myth, Tessa said automatically. So the Council would have everyone believe. Celine took a seat at an empty table. Darius is Genesis 01. The first and only successful prototype. Tessa stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. The Genesis subjects would be over 100 years old by now. 127, to be exact, Celine confirmed. Longevity was one of the primary objectives. But he looks 30, at most. Celine smiled. That's part of the package. But Darius is much more than just a human with extended lifespan. His entire cellular structure can adapt and evolve in real time. His nervous system processes information at speeds beyond our comprehension. His molecular composition can temporarily alter to phase through energy fields. If that's true, why is he so? Tessa searched for the right word. Lazy. Apathetic. Celine offered. That's a more recent development. He used to be different, passionate, driven. He helped build this sanctuary, saved hundreds of modified beings from dissolution. Then something changed. Before Celine could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights pulsed in urgent rhythm. Council vessels, announced a voice over the intercom. Proximity alert. Battle stations. Celine rose immediately. They couldn't have tracked you through the jump. Darius's algorithm is foolproof. Then how did they find us? Tessa asked, already moving toward the hangar. They found Darius in the command center, looking at sensor displays with uncharacteristic attention. 3 Council destroyers, he reported. And something else, a new class of vessel I haven't seen before. The main screen showed the approaching Council fleet. The lead ship was unlike any Tessa had encountered, sleeker than standard Council designs, with pulsing energy signatures that overwhelmed the sensors. The Harbinger, said a voice behind them. An older man with a mechanical eye joined them at the console. Council's new flagship, designed specifically for hunting modified beings. It can detect genetic deviations from 50,000 kilometers. How do you know this, Javier? Celine asked. Because I helped design it, before I discovered my own daughter was genetically divergent, the man replied grimly. The ship has a specialized weapon system, the Purifier. It targets and destroys cells with specific genetic markers. They could sterilize this entire moon without landing a single soldier, Darius concluded, his usual nonchalance completely absent. How did they find us? Tessa asked again. Darius turned to her, his expression grave. They didn't follow you. They followed me. What? How? Because they've been looking for me for a very long time, he replied softly. I thought I'd covered my tracks, but apparently not well enough. On the command screen, a communication request flashed. After a moment's hesitation, Darius accepted. The imperious face of Commander Valeria Thorne appeared, a human who had risen through Council ranks through ruthless efficiency. Her glacial blue eyes scanned the group before settling on Darius. Genesis 01, she said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. So the legends were true. You've led us on quite a chase. Happy to disappoint, Darius replied, his posture still relaxed despite the tension in the room. What can I do for you, Commander? You can surrender yourself and the modified human you abducted from lawful Council proceedings, Valeria stated. Do so, and perhaps we won't purify this entire facility. Generous of you, Darius drawled. But I think we'll pass. Valeria's expression hardened. You misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. The Harbinger's purifier is already locked onto your genetic signatures. You have 1 hour to surrender, or we'll cleanse this entire region of space. The communication ended abruptly. We need to evacuate, Celine said immediately. Get everyone onto the ships. There isn't time, Javier argued. And they'll just track us down again. Then what do you suggest? Tessa demanded. Darius had gone quiet, staring at the sensor readings with unusual intensity. The purifier targets specific genetic sequences, he mused. Javier, how precise is its calibration? Microscopic precision. It can target a single genetic marker across an entire population. Then if we could confuse it, give it too many targets simultaneously. Tessa understood immediately. You want to broadcast our genetic signatures? At amplified levels, Darius nodded. If we can overload its targeting systems. Javier looked skeptical. Even if that worked, they'd still have conventional weapons. 3 destroyers worth. Leave those to me, Darius said, suddenly animated in a way Tessa hadn't seen before. Tessa, I need your ship. Why mine? Because the Stardancer has the exact modifications we need. He turned to her, eyes intensely focused. Will you help me? The question seemed to extend beyond the immediate crisis, an invitation to something more. What's the plan? She asked instead of answering directly. Something extremely reckless, he replied with a hint of his old smile. My specialty. Within the hour, the Stardancer was prepared. Darius had modified its communication array to broadcast amplified genetic signatures across a wide spectrum. Meanwhile, Celine and Javier worked to prepare Haven's defense systems. This is suicide, Tessa noted as she and Darius prepared to launch. Probably, he agreed cheerfully. But it's better than doing nothing, which has been my approach for too long. As they settled into their seats, Tessa studied him. Celine said you changed. What happened? Darius was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the control panel. I got tired, he finally said. Of fighting, of running, of watching people I saved eventually get caught anyway. The Council has ruled for centuries. What difference could one escaped experiment make? Enough difference that they've never stopped hunting you, Tessa pointed out. Maybe. He glanced at her, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Or maybe I just needed a reminder of what's worth fighting for. The hangar doors opened above them, revealing the Council fleet in orbit. Ready? Darius asked. Tessa engaged the launch sequence. As I'll ever be. The Stardancer shot out of the hangar, accelerating toward the waiting destroyers. The Harbinger loomed ahead, its purifier weapon glowing with gathering energy. Activating genetic broadcaster, Darius announced, fingers flying across the controls. The ship's modified communications array pulsed, sending out waves of amplified genetic patterns, hundreds of thousands of modified signatures overwhelming the Harbinger's targeting systems. They're scrambling, Tessa reported, watching the enemy vessels adjust their positions. But they're still charging weapons. Now for part 2, Darius said, reaching beneath his seat and removing what appeared to be a small metallic sphere. An old Genesis Project prototype. Haven't had a reason to use it until now. What is it? Let's call it a reality hiccup, he replied cryptically. Get us within 500 meters of the Harbinger, then be ready to jump to these coordinates. He entered a sequence into the navigation computer. Tessa piloted the Stardancer on a direct course toward the massive Council flagship, dodging energy blasts from the escort destroyers. 400 meters, she called out. Darius activated the sphere, which began to glow with an intense blue light. 300 meters. Hold steady, Darius instructed, his voice perfectly calm despite the danger. 200 meters, they're locking primary weapons. Now. Darius shouted, ejecting the glowing sphere toward the Harbinger. Tessa immediately engaged the jump drive. The Stardancer vanished into hyperspace just as the sphere made contact with the Council flagship. Behind them, a flash of light encompassed the Harbinger and its escorts, not an explosion, but something more fundamental. For a brief moment, the ships seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, their physical forms becoming uncertain, before reality reasserted itself. What did you do to them? Tessa asked as they emerged from hyperspace at a safe distance. Darius leaned back in his seat, suddenly looking exhausted. Temporarily suspended quantum certainty in their vicinity. Their ships exist in multiple potential states right now. It'll take their navigation systems days to resolve the paradox. That's impossible technology, Tessa whispered. The Genesis project was about pushing beyond impossible, Darius replied quietly. That's why the Council fears it so much. And why they'll never stop hunting me. Tessa guided the Stardancer toward a nearby nebula where they could hide while determining their next move. As the swirling cosmic gases enveloped the ship, she turned to face Darius fully. You could have used that sphere at any time to escape the Council, yet you stayed hidden on that moon for years. Why? Darius met her gaze, the mask of apathy completely gone now. Because using it comes with a price. Every Genesis technology requires something from me: cellular degradation, neural pathway damage. The more I use what I was designed for, the faster I burn through my extended lifespan. So by saving me, by fighting back today, I've shortened my life considerably, yes. He shrugged, but the gesture lacked his usual casualness. Worth it, though. For the first time in decades, I remember what it feels like to have purpose. In the soft light of the nebula, Tessa saw Darius clearly, not as the lazy drifter or even the legendary Genesis prototype, but as someone who had carried an impossible burden alone for too long. Without overthinking, she reached across the space between them and took his hand. You're not alone anymore. His fingers intertwined with hers, and for a brief moment, the weight of the galaxy seemed to lift from both their shoulders. No, he agreed softly. I'm not.